Hello. So here we are today, the 17th session of the year. Today we transition from the days of pine into the days of gorse. And I'm going to bring a PowerPoint presentation up as usual and talk us through these days of gorse. Oop, nearly there. Okay, so I'll just say it again quickly. If you just want the basic lore about the gorse bush, it's not a tree, it's a big bush, but it can grow to about 8 or 9 foot high, maybe even 10 foot high, but it's more of a shrub than a tree. um, Search for gorse 2022. That year, we looked at all the basic lore. And if you're interested in the medicinal herbalism value, flower essence of gorse, you want to look for Gorse 2023. So this year, we're looking at which Celtic gods and goddesses best correspond with each tree or shrub of the Ogham. So today we're looking at Gorse and which deity corresponds best with it. No spoilers, Cernunnos is who we're looking at. And he's quite a dynamic figure that we're all attracted to. And he fits perfectly with the days of Gorse. So I'll talk us through that. Quickly though, today, the transition day, if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, the transition from pine into gorse, which is today, happens on the 27th degree of Libra. And gorse will take us from Libra into Scorpio. And Gorse will take us up to the middle of Scorpio. So that's the 15th degree. Each zodiac sign has 30 degrees. So the 15th degree is the middle of Scorpio. And then we enter the days of Heather. So Gorse is going to take us from the last few days of Libra right through to the middle of Scorpio. And the important thing with the middle of Scorpio is that's the exact cross-quarter festival moment known as Samhain. So the Gregorian calendar of All Hallows Eve on the 31st of October or 1st of November is the Gregorian calendar variation of Samhain, but the actual midpoint between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice is 15 degrees Scorpio. This year, if you're interested, that precise moment is on the 6th of November. But due to something called the precession of the equinoxes, the stars slightly move backwards every 70 years. So the Gregorian calendar that everyone uses is going out of sync slowly. It's just the way it is. Every calendar needs adjusting, even when you have 28 days in February and then 29 every 4 years. It still needs adjusting every 70 years. That's man-made calendars for you. But the exact midpoint between autumn equinox and winter solstice this year is on the 6th of November. So there's some wonderful patterns that happen in the Ogham Grove, not by any contrivance, but just by natural synchronicity or serendipity. This is the tree list from the Book of Ballymote. It's the sequence of trees from the 1300s. And all we do is put them in a circle. And what happens then is Imbolc corresponds with the rowan tree, which is related to Bridget, and Beltane is between oak and holly. So it's Oak King and Holly King at Beltane. The two water-loving trees, alder and willow, are side by side, and they're the river trees, and they correspond with Aquarius, the water pourer, and Pisces, the fish. So it's a very wet, watery area. And just like that pattern, although people say the Ogham is 20 trees, well, gorse and heather are not trees, but they're side by side, and they're shrubs of the wild heath. So that's very interesting because not only are they side by side, but the actual midpoint between gorse and heather in the wild heath is Samhain. So that works so wonderfully with ideas of the wild hunt racing across the wild heathland. You know, it's actually there, no trees, heathland shrubs, gorse and heather. This is just a quick diagram, shows you the 4 cross-quarter festivals. So you can see where Samhain is. It's roughly at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And that's where we are heading towards midnight. Midnight is the yew tree at winter solstice. So Lunasa is between ivy and broom. That's the sacred marriage between Lu or Dionysus, Bacchus, and the Queen of Summer. Beltane is the oak and holly, and Imbolc is rowan and alder. So you can see where we are now. Gorse is going to take us up to that Samhain moment, that cross-quarter festival, directly opposite Beltane. And there's magic that happens with that polarity. For instance, when the sun goes from gorse into heather, and you're in the days of heather, any full moon during the days of heather is a holly moon, because holly is directly opposite. So the full moon during the days of heather is actually with the holly king, because the full moon is always opposite. So there's an interesting polarity unity between Beltane and Samhain, and the stars of Beltane and Samhain are significant. And you can think of that as the winter king fighting the summer king, and there's many different ways of looking at it. So we're in now, Gorse is taking us into the territory or the terrain of the winter king. Just quickly looking at the circle of classical deities that we've been looking at all year, you can see that where it's Gorse is where it takes us from Libra into Scorpio, and in the traditional Greek and Roman pantheons, Scorpio was governed by Mars and related to the god Mars, also known as Ares. It's an energy of sexual passion that can also spill over into passionate anger. You know, so Mars as a god of war is there with Scorpio. But with Scorpio, because Scorpio governs the genitals, it's more to do with sexual dynamics and sexual passion and fertility. Make of it what you will. So the Celtic equivalent of Mars or Ares is going to be Cernunnos. He's sitting in that moment if you compare the two types of esoteric ideas. So here's a star map of now. If you look towards the bottom, you can see it says Scorpius at the bottom. And to the right, it says Libra. So the days of Gorse are the last 3 degrees of Libra and then the first 15 of Scorpio. So this vertical line going up between Scorpio and Libra is roughly where we are now and in the next few days ahead. So Gorse is going to take us halfway through Scorpio. Now, I hope you can see it, because for me it's off screen. But directly above the cusp between Scorpio and Libra, there's 2 constellations. There's Serpens Caput, which means the serpent's head or the snake's head. And above Serpens Caput is Corona Borealis. And Corona Borealis, very important. Its English name is the Northern Crown. Different cultures give it different names, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So the days of Gorse take us into Scorpio, but the corresponding constellations are the Serpent's Head and the Northern Crown, Corona Borealis. And that's what's depicted on the Gundestrup Cauldron. The Cernunnos figure is holding a circle and a serpent's head. You know, the head's right by his face. So this is a close-up. So right now, during this potent time of, you know, the days leading up to the Wild Hunt and to Samhain, here's Cernunnos on the Gundestrup Cauldron holding a ring and a serpent's head, and that corresponds so well with the star law of Corona Borealis and Serpens Caput. So we're going to look into that a little bit as we go through this presentation, and we'll come back to the star law in the Gundestrup Cauldron. So here's the constellation of the Northern Crown, Corona Borealis. In Northern Welsh mythology, in the Mabinogion, according to Northern Welsh bardic tradition, the Northern Crown is the constellation of the goddess Ariadne. Ariadne is said to mean silver wheel. And from the North Welsh tradition, writing in the 1800s in Welsh societies in London, they said that Corona Borealis was Ariadne, Care Ariadne. You know, interesting then, because the classical Greek mythology about it is to do with the goddess Ariadne. It's very interesting that, you know, in Greek mythology, the Northern Crown is Ariadne, and in Welsh mythology, and the Druids use Greek as a trade language, they're saying the Northern Crown is Ariadne. So Ariadne and Ariadne, very similar sounding names, and it's just a curiosity there. You can make of it what you will. Very quickly, the story of the constellation is that Ariadne was the princess of Crete, mythical goddess really, who helped the hero Theseus into the labyrinth to defeat the Minotaur, after which he I think he married her or had an affair with her, but then left her, so she was destitute and on her own until she was found by the god Dionysus. And Dionysus then married Ariadne, and her crown from their wedding ceremony, Dionysus put in the night sky, and that's the Northern Crown. So there's this connection then with Dionysus, Bacchus, Ariadne, Arianrod. They're all stories wrapped up in the Northern Crown. Curiously, we're going to look at the stag and the bull as symbols of the opposite times of the year. And it was Ariadne that helped Theseus defeat the Minotaur, to go into the labyrinth and defeat the bull. And so Corona Borealis, directly opposite Beltane and Taurus the bull as well. So that's interesting, that full moon polarity thing that we mentioned briefly. Now, we're going to look at this old treasure, the Gundestrup Cauldron. So intricately carved, and there isn't time to go into it all, but there was wonderful star lore in it. So the figure of Cernunnos holding the round torque and the serpent's head, suggestive of constellations in the night sky, is not unique to the Gundestrup Cauldron. There's other imagery on the Gundestrup Cauldron pointing at star lore. And I'm just going to remind us of some of that very quickly. And the most important bit upon the Gundestrup Cauldron, you need to learn this map of the night sky. I've simplified it as best as I can, and I'll go over it very quickly. So the pale blue streak running up this picture At the bottom area, there's a hexagon of stars formed by Canis Major, Orion, Taurus, Auriga the Chariot, the Gemini twins, and Canis Minor. There's a bright star in each of those 6 constellations, and it's known as the winter hexagon. Now, the winter hexagon is made by these 6 bright stars of 6 different constellations, and it's on the lower part of the Milky Way in this diagram. The important thing is that these winter hexagon are the winter stars in the northern hemisphere. So if you're in Glastonbury in the wintertime, Somerset in the wintertime, the northern hemisphere in the wintertime, the winter hexagon, Orion the hunter opposite Taurus the bull, is dominant in the night sky. These are the winter stars. So there's a polarity opposite that. So at the top of this picture, there's a triangle, and the triangle is known as the summer triangle. And it's made of 3 bright stars, which are sometimes known as 3 golden apples in Celtic stories, sometimes known as 3 birds. And as birds, in Welsh lore, they're the 3 birds of Rhiannon, the Adar Rhiannon, the 3 magical birds of Rhiannon, and they're in the sky in the summertime. And that's Cygnus the swan, Aquila the eagle, and Lyra, which is a harp, but was also known as a little bird. So you've got the summer triangle at the top, the summer stars. You've got the winter hexagon at the bottom, the winter stars. And on the Milky Way, between them, is the W-shaped constellation of the Mother Goddess. They're the heavenly breasts in the center of the Milky Way. And they're ever present. They're circumpolar, so the heavenly boobies are always there. But the winter stars and summer stars come and go as the seasons rotate. Now, here's the magical thing on the Gundestrup Cauldron. When the 3 birds are in the sky, then the hunter and his hound are below the horizon. And the opposite is true. When the winter stars, the hunter and his hound, are in the sky, the 3 birds are below the horizon as the seasons turn. And that's depicted clearly on the Gundestrup Cauldron here. On her hand, she has a little bird, which is Lyra, and there's 2 big birds, one on either side of her. So the 3 birds of Rhiannon are in the night sky. And if they're in the night sky, the hunter and his hound are below the horizon. And if you look below her stylized breasts, you'll see an upside down man and an upside down dog. So it's another representation on the Gundestrup Cauldron of star lore. Simplistically, when the 3 birds are above, the hunter and hound are upside down below the horizon. And that's basic Northern Hemisphere star lore. So that's just one example of star lore on the Gundestrup Cauldron. And then there's also Cernunnos holding the Northern Crown and the serpent's head as well, So it's an intrigue, it's fascinating. There's many things to learn about the Gundestrup Cauldron. It's different to classical Greek and Roman star lore in the sense that then the Celts aren't looking at the zodiac constellations. They're looking at other patterns. They're looking at the pattern of the winter hunter and his hound, and the pattern of the 3 birds, and here the pattern of the torque and the serpent's head, or the northern crown and the serpent's head. A torque is basically a big golden ring of wealth and power in society. So if you've got a big golden necklace, you're somebody important. You're a chief or a queen or a prince or a princess. That it's a big social status symbol, this big lump of gold around your neck. So it's like a tiara or crown, except for it's just worn around the neck. But it's interesting to see how the Celts looked at patterns in the stars rather than the 12 zodiac signs. When you get to later stories like Ceridwen and Taliesin, they're using the zodiac signs. They're kind of medieval astronomy, whereas the old stuff like the Gundestrup Cauldron, still looking at constellations, but summer birds and winter hunters. There's a different way of looking at the sky. So I've dealt with this in other videos. I don't want to be too repetitive, but the idea of a figure having antlers, I could call it horns of power, is not unique to Cernunnos. These two female figures are from southern Gaul, and they're contemporary with other depictions of Cernunnos. So women had antlers as well, in Celtic mythology, and you have to make sense of that as best as you can. The main program we have for the modern day, and it will evolve, is Ellen of the Ways, the icon of a female divine figure with antlers is there in the 3rd century, and it's understanding what that means. But simplistically, if you see the goddess being present all year round, and sometimes she has antlers, then any would-be consort that would marry the goddess has to wear antlers, because she's in her antler phase of the year as well. So I'll talk us through that. There's seasonal personalities of the Celtic year helping us understand Cernunnos. So on the left is the poster for the Ogham Grove, and I deliberately placed a red bull at the bottom and a white stag at the top. And that's deliberate. That's based on stuff I'm going to talk about now. But simplistically, you could see the year divided into 2 halves. There's the summertime with the 3 birds in the night sky, is the time of the red bull. And the winter time, when the winter hunter is in the night sky, is the time of the stag. It's a very simplistic way of kind of dividing the year into winter and summer, or yin and yang, or stag and bull. And the logic for the stag and bull I'll show you now. And I've just literally yesterday found a new statue carving that I'd never seen before, and it has a stag and bull on it. So I was very excited about that. So on the right-hand side is my drawing of a carving found in Gaul of Cernunnos, and below him there's a little stag and a bull. And I took the artistic license of colouring them in red and white, just so you can see them clearly. Don't know what colours they were originally, but we've many pub signs in England of the white hart and the white stag. So for me, it's natural to see the stag as white. And a reddish brown bull, like an Highland heifer, good enough, could be any colour cow, really, but red bull. So back on the Gundestrup Cauldron then, the antlered figure is there holding his ring and his serpent head, but to the left of him is the stag and bull. It's there, quite clear to see. And the stag is bigger than the bull, appears to be closer to Cernunnos, suggesting that maybe it's the stag time of the year, whereas the bull is on his back or behind him, further away. So to me, it kind of sings of the stag time of the year, the antler time of the year, and you've got the ring and the serpent's head. So it's fascinating that it corroborates with another depiction of Cernunnos. So here's the piece of artwork I found just yesterday, and hadn't seen this before. And so I want to go off on a tangent and research here. I don't even know what archaeologists are calling it, but looking at it, it's clearly Romano-Celtic. It's probably from Gaul, but at the bottom, there's a stag and a bull. I'll show you a close-up. So you can see the bull on the left-hand side and the stag on the right-hand side, and there's some sort of plant or tree in the middle and some smaller animals. I'm not sure. Look, near the stag, I think it looks like a boar. And maybe by the bull, it looks like a dog, but I'm not sure. But it's definitely a stag and a bull. So again, it's a recurring thing. So you've got it on the Reims altar, stag and bull on Gundestrup Cauldron, stag and bull Reims altar, and now stag and bull on whatever this thing is called. Fascinating. So I'll quickly explain the stag and bull, but just look at this. In Gaul, they have this very strange three-faced figure that archaeologists think is Lugus or Lu. On the right is a traditional depiction of these three faces in one. And look at this on the left. It's clearly another triple-faced, bearded figure. So it's a Lugus. And that's this man on the right-hand side. So whoever's sitting in the middle looks a bit like a female because the breasts are quite round. And next to her on the right is the three-faced Lugus. And if he's Mercury Lugus, he's above the stag. It's quite interesting. Sadly, the figure on the left has been decapitated. You know, no conspiracy theories, but it's a known history that early Christians vandalized and demolished pagan temples and shrines and did their best to destroy statues of what they considered devilish icons, you know. So we're lucky for the few things that have survived. So on this thing, a female figure in the middle, a stag and bull at the bottom, and a very unusual three-faced Celtic Mercury figure above the stag. Fascinating. So that's a brand new thing. I've never seen that until yesterday. So I want to learn more about that. Simplistically then, the bull is a domesticated animal, and in the ancient world it was a tractor. You used it to pull heavy loads, you used it to plough the fields. Basically, you needed a bull that was tame to do all your farming. So the summer activity from late spring through summer to harvest time, that's the time of the bull. And interestingly, in a Celtic perspective, it begins at Beltane, and Beltane is the 15th degree of Taurus, the bull. So the summer half of the year begins in the sign of the bull. And the polarity opposite to the bull is the stag. The stag is not tame. The stag is wild and untamed. It's not part of domestic farming life. It's part of the winter hunting time. Sad for the stag, you know, but you can't go hunting in the summer and gallop all over your crops. You do your normal kind of farming until harvest time. And then when the deciduous leaves fall from the trees, it's easier in the forests to see what you're hunting. And when there's no more farming to do, you go hunting the stags. You know, stags and boar from a Celtic perspective. So that was done in the winter months. So that's the kind of logic for the bull being summertime and the stag being wintertime. So just very quickly, the goddess going through the ever-changing seasons of the year, in the summertime, she's a cow, you know, and her consort would be a bull. And there's some evidence for that, like the River Boyne in Ireland, where Newgrange is the river of the white cow, and the goddess there is Bowen, and her name means white cow. So there is evidence of bovine goddess, and so her consort should have bull's horns, you know, quite naturally. And then we've seen evidence of a deer goddess or antlered goddess, or the goddess of the winter months. She's antlered, she's the deer. So her consort should have stag's antlers. So I'm suggesting, and on the Gundestrup Cauldron, you've got both. There's a male figure with bull's horns, as well as Cernunnos with his antlers. Just to finish them, the theory is that Cernunnos is consort to the goddess during the winter time, but equally the summer can be being wide awake and the winter being asleep, because it's daytime and nighttime. So the wild, the winter, the wild could also be the shamanic realm, the place of dreams and visions. So you follow the white hart into the forest shamanically and get your dreams and visions in the darker half of the year. Those kind of ideas. The name Cernunnos is only found in one inscription, and it belongs to this carving. This is a carving from about 1st century AD in Gaul, on a pillar known as the Pillar of the Boatmen, and it was found under Notre Dame in France. And this Cernunnos, which is the only one that has the inscription Cernunnos, so on the Gundestrup Cauldron, people say Cernunnos, but it's not written. It's just that he's got horns. Cernunnos literally translates as the horned one. Whether it's bull's horns or antlers, Cernunnos means the horned one. And here on the Pillar of the Boatman, he's got rather small antlers, but he's got torques hanging off them. You know, like someone's thrown a horseshoe and got it round his antler or something. But it's interesting, again, that he's representing these golden rings like he's holding with Corona Borealis and the serpent, that somehow he's representing wealth or status. You know, these are big bling, big lumps of gold for showing how important you are as aristocracy or as a hero or as a chief druid or however we can imagine it. These are status symbols. And Cernunnos then is also representing a god of the other world or underworld, and all of the riches that come from the underworld, minerals, metals, seeds that become fertile food, you know, so that thing of Mars and passion and fertility to do with Scorpio is also there. And it's also that warlike passion of the wild hunt galloping across the wild heath, which is a psychopompic journey into the spirit realm. And we'll look at that more in the days of Heather, because that's the second half of Scorpio as the wild hunt goes past Samhain and into the aspen trees. So I'll shut that down and we can talk about some of those ideas. You can put your microphones back on.
Thank you. Incredible correlations and very much food for thought. All this. Thank you so much.
What about that new statue with the triple-headed man?
That's so cool. It's like a Diana triformis in the male.
Yeah.
So we got to find out what that's called.
Did you say it was found in southern France? It's from Lower Gaul. Did you know?
No, I don't know that. I'm judging by the style of it that it's Gallic, and I would guess 2nd century, but that's pure guesswork. I need to learn more about it. The other statue of Cernunnos with the stag and red bull, that's Romano-Gallic of the 3rd century.
No.
And at least I wore the correct T-shirt.
Yeah, the Gundestrup Cauldron, scholars can't decide. Some say 1st century BC, but equally Wikipedia says 1st century AD. So there's some debate as to how old the Gundestrup Cauldron is. But even if it's 1st century AD, it's 200 years older than the Gallic depiction with the stag and bull. Yeah. So it's showing continuity in Northern Europe, the stag and bull with Cernunnos and with a triple Mercury and whoever the female figure is. Yeah. Imagine if she had antlers.
Uh-huh.
Well, you know, there's a Lap, I think it's the Laps, have a story that the mother deer is the one that doesn't lose her antlers in Lapland.
Right.
And she travels around the world with the sun between her antlers. That's one of her journeys. Particularly, I think it's a story of Christmas, but I'm not sure if it's a year-round thing. So it is quite a nice story that I was thinking she was very much, you know, I suppose perhaps coming down from the matriarchy when ice was all the way around the world at the top or something.
Yeah. The writer Caroline Wise done a lot of research into the deer goddess of Northern Europe. And there's only one species of deer in which the females have antlers, and that's the reindeer. With the Lap and the Sami people, and you know, all the Siberian reindeer herding, you know, so that deer goddess that goes along with them, and the male reindeers drop their antlers as most deers do, but the females keep them, and they use them to defend their young, and they also use them like snow shovels to clear pathways in the snow.
Wow.
So
they rule.
Yeah. So
I'd like to just say, and not take our time now, but if you could help me a little with this background, because we're going to do a play at winter solstice for with the children with Saule, S-A-U-L-E is the spelling of her name, this winter sun goddess Saule, you know, Saule, with the reindeer antlers and the sleigh or chariot like thing going across the sky, being pulled by the female reindeer. We want to pull that all in together and create this story for the children about the predating the Santa Claus mythology. If anyone wants to help me with that, I'd love to hear more references. Thank you.
I can't remember the name of it, but in Caroline Wise's book, I forget what it's called now, Hunting for Eleanor or something. There's this wonderful stag that has a massive antlers, and it's some sort of mythical creature, and on all of the antlers there's these birds, and it kind of goes along the Milky Way to the spirit world, and it flies through the sky like a psychopomp and stuff. Incredible.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Some sort of marriage between birds and the reindeer.
Right. That's very interesting.
Yeah, the other day, somebody asked me, what is the wild hunt? Because I was, you know, just like, I'm going to go. And I could not explain it to her very well. Can you explain it a little bit?
I can explain
I mean,
it.
it's like I know what it is in my heart, but I don't have the words.
I can explain it from my perspective and what I think it is, but equally many people would disagree and see it in a different way. So it's a fairly common theme, like Odin for the Saxons and the Norse has a wild hunt, and in Shakespeare there's Herne the Hunter at Windsor Castle, which was used in the wonderful TV program Robin of Sherwood and stuff. And in Ireland you have Finn McCool and the Fianna are a kind of wild hunt. And the way I see it mainly from my research into Gwyn ap Neath, which is to do with Glastonbury, he goes hunting in the winter months, so he's a wild hunter. But the main thing is a psychopomp, which is a gathering of souls to take them to the spirit world. Now, depending on your outlook, some people see that like a horrible Hammer horror film, and other people see it as spiritually profound. You know, so I don't believe that all the Welsh writing I've read, the other world is a beautiful place. It's a golden realm, and it's where you would want your ancestors to go and where you want to go, you know. But it gets wrapped up with modern ideas of Halloween and witches and zombies and ghouls, and it gets turned into a monstrous, scary thing. And America with Halloween has influenced that, and even Mexico with the Day of the Dead and the celebration of skulls. So that is now in English culture. And you'll find it at Glastonbury. There'd be skeletons and skulls and stuff. But when I think of my dad and my grandmother, I don't think of skulls. I think of their souls in the spirit world. So there's a wonderful poem in the book, the Black Book of Carmarthen, and it's a story of a character called Gwythno Garan here, and he meets Gwyn ap Neath on the battlefield. And at first he thinks Gwyn ap Neath has come to help him defeat his enemies. And Gwyn ap Neath turned up to take him to the next world, as a bit like Vikings going to Valhalla or something, So it's, if you were a Christian, it's like the Archangel Michael turning up to take you through the valley of the shadow of the death to paradise. So for me, the Wild Hunt is a gathering of lost souls and taking them to the spirit realm.
Yeah.
But some people celebrate it as trick or treat and Halloween as well.
Yeah, but I think that it's actually was part of our tradition in Preseli in West Wales, because when I was a child, they would talk about it. And the archaeological people were interviewing someone on the hill in 18 or 1912, or it might have been the end of 1800 something. And the old man he was interviewing said, "Oh, the wild hunt doesn't come through as often as it used to now." So it was like, it was a very living legend. And Gwyn ap Neath is supposed to be very strong here too.
Yes.
But he comes across and he's leaving the names of places like the hunt. So there's a Black Dog Fountain, a spring on the route that he took. There's a Black Dog Spring, and there are two houses called Cernunnos Fawr and Cernunnos Fach. And he was supposed to come from the Rising Sun portal at the end of, by Crimach, at the end of the Preselis, at the eastern end, where there's a great rock and a gateway for the sun, and come through there and sweep across the hills to this route. So
in Glastonbury, the local legend was that Gwyn ap Neath lived inside the Tor and went hunting on winter nights. That's the basic story. Now, from the centre of Glastonbury, looking at the Tor, or more importantly, from the location of the Iron Age Lake Village, looking at the Tor, throughout the winter months, the constellation of Orion the Hunter and his hound comes out of Glastonbury Tor.
Yeah.
It goes hunting.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
So the winter stars come out of Glastonbury Tor, and at winter solstice, the sun rolls up Glastonbury Tor.
Mm-hmm.
So probably in Pembrokeshire near you, Vanya, I don't know where you would observe it from. You would have a place to observe from, but Gwyn ap Neath would rise out of some of your local hills and still go hunting in the winter months.
It's the same hill that Orion rises from, interestingly.
Yeah.
It's one of the gateways. Yeah.
So Orion is Gwyn. It's the winter hunter. Yeah.
Yeah.
And his hound is Canis Major. And
yeah. It's lovely.
And lovely. because the stag is the symbolic animal of the winter character has antlers. So they're just symbolisms. It's no different to Ganesh having an elephant head. It's what the elephant head represents, really. And the antlers represent the winter time and the winter hunter.
Yeah.
The first time we did the dragons at Glastonbury, I think it was 2016. We did a Beltane thing, and Glastonbury's always busy at Beltane anyway. But we decided to do a Samhain event with the dragons for the first time, and we didn't know how popular it would be. We didn't know who would turn up. Beltane May Day is a big celebration, but Samhain, who would turn up for it? And we came up with some ideas about honouring the ancestors, but the ancestors being literally anyone you love who has passed over to the other side. And what we had is we had a couple of priestesses gathering pieces of paper that people had written loved ones' names on, and they put them all in a basket. And we took the dragons to the tour. Over 1,000 people turned up, and it was so like Beltane was celebration energy. Samhain had a kind of poignant, emotional sanctity about it, and people just watched as these slips of paper with loved ones' names written on were used to light the bonfire.
Wow.
You know, and people were just standing around thinking of their ancestors or their loved ones, you know.
That's
so for me, that
intense.
was what the Wild Hunt was about. It was about your love for your friends and loved ones that have passed over. And yeah,
that's lovely.
It'd be nice
That
if we're all
is.
guided to the next world by whoever you want to guide you, whether it's the Archangel Michael or Gwyn up Neath, you know, but a spirit that is protective.
Yes. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah. And there's the bull as well in the Mabinogion, the enchanted princes who had a fight, and they drew in the whole of the world into their battle, and the gods were so disgusted they turned them into two bulls, which locally here again we've got the Huan stones, Huan, which is from Huan Gadden, I think it is, who was the inventor of the yoke traditionally, and brought the Cymry out of the east with the as a peacemaker and a farmer. He was taught them to plough and things like that. So
that's
very interesting, isn't it? The bull again was central.
Yeah, the symbol of the bull beginning the art of agriculture and everything.
Yeah.
So I guess the stag is the hunter-gatherers just living wild and feral rather than settling and having farms.
Yeah.
But we're both. I also think of that, you know, just like our brain is duality, we are the bull, we're tame and civilized, and we know how to behave in polite society and stuff. So we're domesticated. But we're also, when we have our visions, we're the wild stag in the dream world, and we're feral. So that somehow we hold domesticated and wild and free, that we're there with our dreams and visions as well.
The essences of both, yes.
Or this world and the fairy world, you know, it's like, yeah.
The other side has got to be beautiful.
I sometimes see Gwyn as the Oberon, you know, like the Lord of the Fairies with Titania, you know, that there is this kind of fairy otherworldliness as well.
Vanya, were you speaking of the Pwyll? Is it Pwyll?
To do with what? Sorry.
When earlier you were speaking of I've lost my thought. I'm sorry. It's out of there.
I think Vanya was talking about Hugh Gadan.
Hugh and Gadan, yeah.
Hugh and Gadan.
Oh, okay. Let me write that down.
All right, yeah. There was records of him in Constantinople and a temple to him at Hesse in Germany, apparently. And in that journey, that great journey across time, and I mean, however you can imagine it, and to the west, traveling to the west too.
Right. always to the west.
the farming. Yeah.
It's so interesting. You and
To-
Gadam.
To the west is the setting sun, and in a lot of Celtic stories, that's the other world, or the golden realm.
Exactly.
It's the sunset, isn't it? You know, it's the
Mhm.
golden twilight is where the sun goes, so therefore spirits go there.
That's right. The
That's
That's
underworld.
how I refer to
Yeah.
it, for sure. One thing I wanted to bring up, the commercialization of Samhain and Halloween is just way over the top now. And I find that that's disturbing and distressing. But they've also got Krampus, which is very pertinent to England and over in the UK, where he comes and he gets the kids that are bad and takes them away, or gives them a beating or
Strangles
whatever.
them. No.
Yes, it's really disturbing.
I know.
He's not like our fat little Santa Claus at all.
I'm in Jersey at the moment with my little boy who's going to be 6 in 2 days' time, and
Oh, wow.
All right.
we're in the shops looking at the Halloween things, and because he loves carving a pumpkin, he likes that and stuff, but he's looking at all the other Halloween things, and it's Jason masks and plastic cleavers with painted blood on them. And
No,
I'm like,
that's
but
wrong.
he doesn't understand, he doesn't know the references or anything, so just
No, that's got to be disturbing.
yeah, lots of skulls and things, but
Capitalism at its best.
he was quite happy with a
Yes.
black spider and a pumpkin, and
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
He's going to be how old?
He's going to be 6. Yeah.
6.
Oh,
What a lovely age to be.
Lovely age. Yes. Lovely.
Right. I'll stop recording. We'll do our meditation.